Hello everybody, Geraldine Rose here with a request from a subscriber taking the Simon Says Stamp Blossom Swag embossing folder and turning it into a wreath. So here we are for Christmas in July with the results. Now realizing how much I had pictures of die cuts going through my Big Shot machine in all my last videos, I'm like, you are not doing that this time, girl. So no die cuts here. So you've all missed what I did in taking that Simon Says Stamp Blossom Swag embossing folder, running it through twice, once forward, once backwards, reversing the cardstock in there each time, so that I ended up with the deboss side here that I am coloring in with a bunch of inks and then repainting over with the mica sprays. So this is on the side that is indented in, not the emboss side on the other side. When it went through the second time, it actually had a really good impression still at the bottom, but the first impression that it had done, it kind of lost a little bit of that detail. So I thought, well, I was going to be putting like a poinsettia part of a wreath swag up there anyways to tie it in with the Christmas thing. So I'll just use that up at the top and cover that up actually with the other die cut that you'll see that's coming later. So this is where I am trying out the blackout technique for the first time. I used my Memento Tuxedo Black the first time, and when it dried, it was still a bit gray looking on this panel. So I've got everything down and making certain I'm not pressing too hard and trying out the Honeybee Intense Black for the next one. I got a little bit better results with this one doing this. So I did go back over the first panel and kind of touched it up a little bit with the Intense Black. By the way, if you can't stand ink on your fingers, use a pair of gloves. You will be dirty after this. Now I've got both those panels blacked out, and oh, you can see the one was done with the Pinkfredge Folk Edge Essential Die Set to tidy up around the outside. So now I'm going in with the Shimmer Spritz sprays. I think I was using the Weathered Wood and the Fossilized Amber and probably the Uncharted Mariner. And carrying on the wreath thing, I thought, well, let's put a frame around each of them. So the top one, I already got out the Altenew Picture Frame die set for it. And the other one is an old frame that I've had forever and ever, which I will end up cutting it down because it was a little too big and overwhelmed. So what I was doing here was thinking, oh, well, the one to tie in the gold that we got from Fossilized Amber, I'll just put some foundry racks around the outside. So I mixed the gilded and the copper, and here I'm heat embossing because you have to heat emboss that to set it. Now off camera I stamped the sentiment for this from one of the Recollections sets, an old one, and this one I put the detail gold on. That's a glossy black paper so that it would kind of stand out on that. This is a glossy black paper. Even using my rabbit tool powder on it, the embossing powder still stuck, so I'm just brushing it off with a paintbrush there, the extra little fleck, embossing it here very carefully to not melt the glossy. This is a brushed gold metallic paper that I'm using to do the second sentiment. Tried it first with gilded ink and it didn't work, so I'm using the Versamark here instead. And this one I'm going in with the Ranger Black Sparkle embossing powder. Again, kind of reversing what we have happening with the other sentiment. Embossing it. Just remember, with any sparkle embossing powder, heat it from the back first because then your sparkle doesn't fly all over the place. On the sentiment, I cut out a couple other die cuts. I put a red one behind it. It just brings in a spot more color because that's quite a dark panel with all the black that we've got on there. I cropped down the one that I didn't die cut around the edges. I had used the Canson XL watercolor for the panels because I knew they were going to be having a lot of liquid thrown at them, and so it needed to be cropped down to an A2 size card. And here is where I have got out the Sizzix Tim Holtz. This was one of his brushstroke ones, and I am cutting that out of different shades of red and the green cardstock so that I can get a wreath built with it. Putting on some sprays once I've got them die cut out. So I was using a lot of the oxides and then some of the micas, and at the end I did go in with the spritz spray over top. And here you're going to see that I'm the luckiest lady in the world.
It's looking good, sweetie. Yeah, I like those. That's a really nice color for a background Christmas card.
Now we're on to the gluing together portion of this. I hadn't used this one before, and I kept having to refer to the package on, okay, which pieces go where. even though it had die cut in where the lines were, because of all the sprays and stuff that I put on them, they got covered up. And this is the foliage. As you can see, I cut it in many different shades of green and trying to make some of them look like eucalyptus and some of them poinsettia leaves. I got out some gold vellum and some metallic cardstock as well to cut the pine and the fir needles. You can see I'm spraying and spritzing it to bring in that same kind of variation in tones so that it doesn't stand out and look too out of place compared to the others, in case it didn't have any like splotchlys on top of it or shiny stuff. Here we are. We have decided on arrangement of the wreath. Amy R taught us this, that if you do 2 cards, you can actually do your flower arranging, etc. on one card and then refer to it while you're doing the other card. So I did that with the first one, and I am putting down its sentiment die cuts here. Gosh, it does take me forever to decide exactly where I'm going to place it. Oh, done. Yay. Oh, the second die cut, it actually had a part where you could inset a different color on the inside, setting in all of the letters there. And it was a textured paper too, so they stood out a little bit differently as well. So those little parts that go inside the R's and the D's, I can't remember what they're called. I know that the dots over the I's and J's are the tittles, but I shall have to research that out again. Here, based off of that first card, is where we're going in and arranging each of the layers in the background for the wreath that's going to be up at the top. And that's the part that's covering over the first impression from the embossing folder, the one that when it got run through the second time in the other direction, it kind of got squashed out a little bit. And the poinsettia wreath works perfectly for covering that up, and it actually turns that summer garden embossing folder now into a winter one, and it's kind of a neat little trick actually, so you can use it for all seasons. It's not just for summer, that blossom swag. And putting down the final layer there for the die cut for the wreath, that's the poinsettia on top. And now I'm going on and working on the sentiments on the inside of the card. This was an Echo Park one. I think it was Warm Hugs, their stamp set. I put down a red ink first, and then I went in over top of it with a golded gilt one, thinking it would add some sparkle. And you can see it when you're holding the card, but it didn't pick it up through any of the videos or really any of the photographs. I also used the Simon Says stamp, their Christmas blessings. They have so many sentiments on that one. I'm still kind of kicking myself that I didn't get the die set to this, but maybe when Simon has a sale on, I'll be able to put that in my cart. I'm starting to realize how useful those die cuts are actually after so much fussy cutting. I am checking that I have got the card in the right orientation so that I can put the custom stamp on the back. So there's the first card, and again flipping it. Oh, yep, okay, got it down on the right part. And we are using the second stamp on the back. Okay, probably putting the panels on next. Yep, there we are. My brain jumps back and forth so much between, oh, what if I do this in this area? And what if I do that in that area? That it took me a really long time to learn. Finish your front panels before you glue them onto the card, especially when you're trying to put them in your MISTI and they're taking up so much bulk because they're flopped down on the one side. So it's like, do your inside sentiments, get the rest of the card done, and then put the panels on the front. So I'm wiggling them around, putting their acrylic block down for some weight. Here I'm nipping off the leaves around the edge. I left these ones at the A2 size instead of trimming them down so they'd have a white border because I wanted to get the full effect of that blackout on there. Into the embellishment. So we threw some This Calls for confetti and the Simon Says stamp confetti and the Pink Fresh, because you guys know I love the ombre drops. So the 2 different types of ombre drops there. And we also went in with some Nouveau, the jewel drops at the end to make more little holly berries on there. There we are with all its shimmery goodness. So there are cards for that double challenge of using the summer blossom swag embossing folder to make a wreath, and also using the blackout technique for first time. So you all be that change you want to see in the world. Go out, have some fun, and we'll see you all next time, okay? Bye-bye.